There it is. Beautiful.
Okay.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So, I I was just preparing my notes, and I think this is going to be comical for the people that are listening. I have a full paragraph as to your credentials and what it is, but first, I want to say how we met. So, Dr. Rayfield is actually a colleague, friend, connection with Christian Santiago, who is a comedian, the stand-up comedian in New York that I found through Instagram networking. He's like, you should really talk to this guy, Dr. Rayfield. He's got quite a story, and he also does stand-up comedy with me. Without further ado, let me introduce you the best way that I can so that people can kind of get a glimpse of who you are and what you bring to the table, and we'll go right into it. Sound good?
That sounds
Awesome.
great. Thank you.
You got it. So Dr. Elliot Rayfield is a clinical professor of medicine, which is endocrinology, diabetes, and bone diseases. He's a board certified in internal medicine and endocrinology and metabolism. He was president of the American Diabetes Association, which is a New York downstate affiliate. He's a member of the American Society for Clinical Research and a fellow of the American College of Physicians. He's been active on national committees of the American Diabetes Association, the Endocrine Society, and the American College of Clinical Endocrinology, where he served on the editorial board of endocrine practice. You were also awarded the Sidney H. Ingbar Distinguished Service Award for Distinguished Service in the Endocrine Society in the field of endocrinology in 2014. I'm seeing a theme here. You're also a member of the Institutional Advancement Board at Thomas Jefferson University. Last but not least, you are an amateur stand-up comedian.
I am. And so that story is very interesting. All my life, all my professional career, my patients would say, "You don't know how funny you are." And I wasn't trying to be. And so I said, but I would say to them, "Oh, I've been told that. I get the idea." And it was very interesting because also they're observing their behavior, their non-compliance with what I would ask them to do, their sense of entitlement. They're wanting me to perform miracles in a moment. They're wanting unlimited supplies of medical samples, like they would send their chauffeur to my office outside the door to bring samples, and they didn't even want to come for visits. Just give me samples of the drugs that you put me on for their medical conditions.
Sure.
Not wanting to pay co-pays. Anyway, 3 years ago at a Christmas party in my co-op where I live, the chairman of the co-op board said, "Hey, you guys, come to at Christmas Eve, I'm doing a stand-up comedy routine in a local venue." And I was shocked because she wasn't even funny. And that was the turning point. At that time, I said, well, she's going to do it. Like, let me put myself out there. And January of 2018, I signed up for a stand-up comedy course, and I've been doing that since. First at one venue for a year, and then right now I'm doing this. I'm participating in Dave LaBarca's course at Christian Santiago. That's where I met Christian Santiago.
Yeah. Wow. So you, wait a second. So this was a few years ago at a Christmas party. Yeah. Were you still like practicing? Were you still working and that sort of thing?
Oh, yeah.
So you're fully engaged. Okay. Fully working full time. Yeah. And you're in a very specific field, very distinguished in your field. You go see this this woman who's like the special feature of the evening, and as a comedian, and she wasn't even funny, and you're like, you know what, I bet I could do better.
So she wasn't funny, actually, like in the first floor of our building where we had the party. I mean, when she did her stand-up comedy routine, it was okay, but like I'm funnier than she
is. So and humble too. I like it.
She was okay, but there are different levels of funniness.
Yeah. Yeah. We're off to a great start. Okay. So that was a few years back. And since then you were taking classes, you met Christian, you guys networked and that sort of thing. And I understand you're still kind of involved. You're still very much involved in your field of your discipline of the endocrinology and like practice and that sort of thing. Um, how much time would you say you devote to comedy?
Well, I'm semi-retired now, so I volunteer in the diabetes clinic at Mount Sinai uh, once a week. But um, I do comedy, like I write comedy like a few times a week, and then but of course now with the pandemic, uh, it's very hard for stand-up comedians to really practice their craft with you can't do it with a live audience now.
Yeah.
So, but we have Zoom sessions. It's interesting. The Zoom sessions are not the same. You don't get the feedback that you would get like when you're in the moment with a group of like-minded comedians or when you're performing on a stage.
Yeah.
So
Plus the reactions that you get are delayed in and of itself. So it's hard to do that in general. So I guess why comedy? Like why not another thing that you saw somebody do a terrible job at and decided to go into that? Like why, what was it about comedy? You just didn't, you thought, like, hey, people have said I'm funny. I feel like I have a knack for this. Let me just go after it.
that was part of it, but I mean, they say like laughter is the best medicine, and that became became one of my routines. You just like if you observe people, the things that they do are so remarkable. Like a patient will say, um, if I do this behavior, will this keep me from, will this be good? And is this medicine really the right medicine for me? And I'll say, yes, it is. And then they'll say it like 5 more times, and I'll say to them, listen, you can say this 100 times. I'm not going to change my mind. And the people are just funny. And
Yeah.
and being an observer as a physician, you're a really great observer to things that other people don't really know about people. You really have them. They're undressed. They're in an examining room, and they're not censoring themselves, and they're very vulnerable. And you are in a great position to really help them. And part of helping them is treating them as a whole person, not just a high blood pressure or high sugar, but their mind and their body and the totality of that in an integrated whole. And it's really very, great to be able to do that. And medicine, in comedy turns out to be one of the things that you can use to really help with the healing process. So
Yeah.
it's really very cool.
You touched on something that a friend of mine did. His name is James Moore, and he's a local comedian here in Connecticut, branching out rather rapidly before COVID happened, of course. But he's actually done some work. It's a big network, but long story short, he mentioned the same thing. He mentioned that to be a comedian, you have to be a superior observer of human behavior, and you can't just see it and move on. You have to see it, analyze it, turn it into processes into something that you can then turn into either a joke or a thought or whatever it may be. And I think characters like Dave Chappelle, who I think he just won the Mark Twain Award, and folks like that, they're masters of being able to take the best and worst of our reality and make a joke about it, also make sense about it, and so on and so forth, and exhibit free speech in that way. So as far as comedy is concerned, what's the outcome that you want? What is it 2 years from now that you'd like to see happen?
Well, That's well. For one of the things I'm doing is actually like I'm going to write. I'm writing my memoirs on the comedy piece of my career, and the title of the book is going to be "I Know Because I'm a Doctor." That was like that's like a tagline of a lot of the bits that I use. But what is the outcome of the comedy? So actually, it's interesting. When I was really in full thrust in all aspects of my career with the Endocrine Society, and I was like chairman of the development committee, I raised a lot of money for a library on the history of endocrinology, and I was like president of the Mount Sinai alumni for 2 years and raised $5 million for from my patients for medical student scholarships. At, at this point, I felt like as I became involved with stand-up comedy, that this is another platform I have for reaching an audience. It's not my patient base. These are other people that I can really make and be impactful with in a different way. So it's like another platform. There's Google and there's Facebook and there's Twitter and there's Dr. Rayfield's comedy, which is yet another platform for him to show his thing, his abilities to make people laugh and so forth.
You strike me as somebody who's very cerebral, and that I guess
endocrinology is a very cerebral specialty of medicine too.
that's very true. Okay, let me ask you this question: if you could choose to stay in on a Saturday night and read a good book or watch a show or whatever, be with one person or something like that, or go out with a group of individuals, what would you do?
Oh, that's a good question. So it would be great to go to have some, like to go to a comedy club and have some drinks and then listen to someone like that, that was very appealing to the group, like a really good comedian.
Have you always been that way, or are you?
Oh, no, this is new. This is this is new. Just getting with a group, going to dinner with a group, or having a party with a group of like-minded people, and really having fun. But no, the comedy thing. The comedy thing. I was the comedian for lots of times for like when there was a group of people, but the thing that's interesting that I've noticed in life about so many things is, and it's really relevant now with COVID-19, and I just say, oh, why can't Bill Gates sponsor a Zoom meeting, a high-level meeting of all the virologists in the world to come up with like a group out of the, just a group think tank of how we can have a consortium to come up with the best vaccine for SARS-CoV-2. Wouldn't that be awesome? Instead of everyone competing against each other, have a collaborative effort to get this fast-tracked in some way by having these people collaborate. And so I think, I think that when you think about things like Saturday Night Live and a lot of efforts in creativity, it's not just someone being like the mad scientist by himself or herself, but I find like a lot of creativity is actually through people joining forces in a consortium and like kind of like, I mean, Saturday Night Live, like everyone's around the table, like coming up with an idea, and at the end, the product is a totality of all those smart people collaborating. So,
Would you love to be at that table someday?
oh, I would love it. I would give anything to do it, because I feel that even though I'm funny, still I get before a group of, when we have our comedy class, I need people like Christian and the teacher, Dave, and other people that say, hey, you said this, but like, why don't you change that word to this word, or make it more silly, run with the silly, and they come up with ideas that I haven't considered.
Mm.
So it's really very powerful to have that editing and that group effort make your product so much more valuable.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm going to go down a political pathway here. When you brought up Bill Gates, and there's some conspiracy theorists out there who believe that he was aware of the COVID virus being launched, and right in the nick of time, he has like a solution for it and that sort of thing. Do you think there's anything to that at all? Any solidified or legitimate reason to believe that he was involved with the release of the COVID virus, or anything nefarious in that way?
I don't think so. So the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they've been involved in global medicine for several years now,
Mm-hmm.
and with malaria and a lot of infectious diseases in the underdeveloped countries, third world countries. Um, and he's spending a lot of money for that. To think that he was somehow involved in unleashing this virus so that he could then capitalize on it. He doesn't. He doesn't need the money, and
Yeah.
I think it's. I know that that's a conspiracy, a popular conspiracy theory, but I just don't buy it. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
And what do you say to folks? I'm sorry if I'm turning this into tell me if you're not willing to talk about it, but I think you are literally one of the only people that I know that can speak from such a level of on the inside and expertise. What do you make of people's claims that coming up with an antidote, or a vaccination for this is just an opportunity to microchip us, or they're going to, in order to do that, they're going to put something else in there to, I don't know, to prop up the pharmaceutical industry or whatever. Do you think that have you experienced any reason to believe that there's anything nefarious going on with the creation of a vaccine for a COVID-19 or anything like that?
I don't think so, because the thing is that ideally you would like a global cooperative network to help in uh, launching this. But as we stand now, there are 100 facilities throughout the world that are working on this vaccine. So I don't see, if anything, they're competing against each other. So
Hmm.
I don't see any nefariousness in this activity. And then once I think we're going to need we may need more than one vaccine, because just to produce vast amounts of it for everyone, it's just going to be an arduous effort. So I think that right now, maybe the nefariousness will enter into the plot later on when we get further along with development of success.
Sure.
But right now, I don't think so.
All good ideas are subject to corruption.
Yeah, let's leave it for 8 months from now, when things are getting hot and heavy. Hopefully,
Yeah.
the sooner the better. Sooner the better.
Yeah. Agreed. So why does
By the way, I just want to say that when I had a year of endocrine fellowship at the Brigham in Boston, and it was during the Vietnam War. I was in the middle of that year, and I got a call from the Army saying, you cannot complete your Bury plan, which would allow me to finish my whole training. We need you in the Army. You can either spend 2 years of regular Army, which in my mind was going to Vietnam and being in a helicopter as a medic, or you could do 3 years of research at Walter Reed, and we'll call you back in a week after you've decided. I said to the woman, please don't hang up the phone. I know exactly what I want to do. I want 3 years at Walter Reed. I wound up at an infectious, I wound up before Dietrich, which is an infectious disease institute in Frederick, Maryland, which is 40 miles west of Walter Reed. It's part of Walter Reed. And that was the same place that the Andromeda strain, Michael Critton's book, The Andromeda Strain, was really crafted after that facility at Walter Reed. So I was doing research when I was in the Army on the effects of various viruses on carbohydrate and hormone metabolism back in the early 1970s. So I have like another, venue, and my research actually Mount Sinai was looking at viruses as a causal agent for diabetes. So like, it's sort of weird how this has come back to, not to haunt me, but this has come back to be part of my life at this point. Although
Yeah, I can imagine. It must be quite a surreal feeling to have completed so much in your career, in your life, and right now in the stage where you were kind of pursuing something a little bit more fun and a more lighthearted and whatnot, something so serious, not only locally, but globally has come up. That's really interesting. So what, do you think we're handling this well? Like globally, from a global measure of how we're like from the Center of
no,
Disease Control, and what do you think?
no, I think it's terrible. I think it's a disaster. There's no United States typically in the past when something like this would occur would take the helm, take the leadership role, and orchestrate like this country's going to do this country's going to do that, and have a really major cooperative plan in place. And people like the leaders of the free world were eager for that to happen, but it hasn't yet. And what's interesting is that the countries that are doing the best with this are the countries that have women leaders, like New Zealand and Germany. Those countries have the least number of patients with mortalities from COVID-19. Angela Merkel was a physicist before she became Chancellor of Germany, and so she uses her scientific acumen to the best advantage of her country. Unfortunately, the United States, thank God for Dr. Fauci, in my opinion anyway. I think he's a force of reason in this wilderness of cacophony now.
Cacophony. Well said. Well, that's a very interesting take on it. I first did not realize that in years past, the United States kind of took the bull by the horns and told the rest of the globe, this is how we're basically captained it or quarterbacked the situation and said, this is what we need to do. And United Nations or whatever it would be in agreement with them. Whereas today it seems to be every man for himself, which I imagine from a scientific perspective must be pretty entertaining is the wrong word. Fairly, I was going to say interesting to observe, because to your point, you can now see the differences that policies, what they result in. For instance, go ahead.
I was shocked that this pandemic office that existed in previous administrations was terminated by the Trump administration to save like $1 million, when you look at the big picture, that's like peanuts.
Yeah.
It was a very inept move, and we lost valuable time. But I think now we just have to. Now what concerns me is a lot of these states that are opening up that unless like in Florida and various places, like even in Central Park, I want to go and run. I'm just amazed at how many people are going on the park and then without any mask or social distancing. I just hope that we learn our lesson and we don't have a real second wave of problems emerging.
Well, you know what's interesting from that is there is such a divide depending on how you've been impacted by the virus, right? For me, it's very, very easy for me to say hashtag stay home. You know what? Like I'm doing fine because quite frankly, my business as of today has not dropped off that much. I'm still bringing in money for myself and my future family, and I'm okay. I'm relatively unscathed. But there are people out there who, from day one, have had to close down their shops, and they've had to, they've been really negatively affected from this. So it's a very interesting thing to see how people react when their livelihoods are at stake and how they throw. How they twist science and media to their liking in that moment. And they pull from whether it's Fox News or CNN or whatever it may be to, again, feed their narrative because, hey, I'm being affected by this. But you can't help but believe that if a hairdresser, for instance, who owns her own shop, if she was getting paid as regularly as she was before and she didn't have to work or she could do it from home or whatever it may be, she would not be on the news complaining and holding press conferences and that sort of thing. I don't know what's right or wrong. That's the crazy thing to me. I think at the end of the day, you have to boil it down to the lowest common denominator and say life over death.
Right.
But it's interesting in these moments how folks take what was once very clear science and they muddy the waters to say it can't really be that bad. Let me go back to work. What do you
Right.
think about all of that?
No, I know it's a major philosophical question. It's like the argument, like Governor Cuomo saying, "What's the value of a human life? You can't really put a price on it." And thinking about his mother as like a good example of someone who was in jeopardy. But then um, it's but I think you just have to be very, I think that there is a middle ground. I think of being very cautious, looking at the data, looking at the facts. And the part of the middle ground, unfortunately, is passing, is raising trillions of dollars to help um, state and local governments, to help people who are out of work, until we have a solution for this. Because the good thing about the Federal Reserve is that they can really, there's, I think Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, has a good idea. Like, just give people the money to till we correct the situation, and then our economy will be preserved at that time. So I think there are plans in place that if we allow them to roll out, that it'll work out okay. But we just have to. We shouldn't have a political agenda. We should think about what's safest and best for the largest number of people. So
We are the Israelites roaming through the desert for 40 years right now. That's
absolutely.
what we are. And at the very beginning was so clear as to what we ought to be doing. I don't think there was really much of anybody in disagreement, maybe for the first week or so. And then once it started hitting them hard, now we start complaining and moaning and wailing. It's a it's a
It's
very interesting.
very,
Yeah,
very interesting, and it's easy to pontificate when your skin isn't involved. Probably.
exactly. Exactly. That's That's what I'm getting at here is, I'm 31 years old. I'm in the best shape of my life. I am making the largest salary I've ever made. My financial health, mental health, relational health, everything is set. I've never been in a better place in my life, which is very ironic to the situation. With that said, if I were lacking in one or two of those things in particular, such as my career, my finances, even my relationships, if I was unhappy in that way, or my mental health or something, I can easily see how I would cross that line of thought and start thinking about myself, and others like me and my family, if I had one, that we're going tribal now, right? Like we're getting very tribal. We're getting every man for himself, in a lot of ways. And I think when you see people saying those things on the media, instead of saying you're such an idiot for thinking that, I think, well, spend a moment in their shoes and the anxieties and concerns that they're having. Yes, I do agree that the lowest common denominator is life versus death, and you can't deny the deaths. You can't.
Sure.
However, I think these thoughts creep in when they're able to, the death of thousands, they can hardly perceive because they haven't seen them. They might not have been affected by them. They don't know them, but the harm to your family and yourself is easily perceivable. And that it's a testament to how we are with almost any major debate in society. This is not the first one to come. So as an endocrinologist, as a doctor yourself, and seeing this, it sounds like you're in agreement. We absolutely need to stay home. The cost of loss of wages and whatnot, is not worth the risk that we take to go back out.
Right, exactly. And hopefully there will be money in place to help people that are really struggling now.
Yeah.
I really hope that happens, because that is terrible, and that is devastating for people to, like, where they're going to get they have a bunch of kids. Where's their next meal going to come? Fortunately, in New York City, I think a lot of the people are like letting rent go for a few months. How long that's going to go on, I don't know.
Right.
But it's a very stressful, trying time, and hopefully the process is, we have like something comes really good sooner than we anticipated. But I think in the beginning it is very surrealistic, and I think that in the beginning people really didn't consider the fact that it could take a year or more for a solution. Mm-hmm. That was like, it sort of took like a month or two before reality like hit us.
Yeah, like, oh, this is sticking around. This isn't a joke.
No, it's not. It's no joke. It's not.
It felt like one long sleepover. And I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast, or Joe Rogan Experience episode with, I forget his name, but the gentleman from the basically a disease control center, I think in Minneapolis or something of that nature. But I'll never forget how he was talking with Joe Rogan, and he says, I don't think people realize this, but this isn't going to be a matter of weeks. This is going to be a matter of months. Like, this is going to be done maybe in the late fall. And Joe Rogan is asking him questions. What can we do? Do we wash our hands? Do we, I've heard like if you go in a steam room, it kills the germs and all these things. And he keeps saying, yeah, masks help a little. Washing your hands help a little. But and then he's listing one thing after another. He says, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really make much of a difference. You just got to stay away from people. And the biggest thing is you got to be healthy. And he's like, well, what does that mean? And he said, well, one of the biggest determinants to that is being in a healthy weight range. That will help you more than almost anything. It has such a number of contributing factors. So I I have to ask your opinion of this because I just thought of this idea called the Board as Health Initiative. And it's a play on words, of course, but the idea is, when we were stuck at home for the first little bit, everybody was complaining about being at home and, not knowing what to do, which I thought, this is my dream come true. Now I could do all the things on the side that I wanted to. Plus, I think people are overrated. And I thought, well, in going with what this gentleman had said, we can use this extra time that we're not commuting to work anymore, or whatever it may be, and exercise a little bit more and take care of our bodies and our diet. So if we can come out of this virus much healthier versions of ourselves, what better way to combat the next one that comes around than something of that nature? High level, 50,000 foot view. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But some people, some people say that they gain weight because they're eating more at home. But I actually lost weight because I wound up like cutting carbs, cutting like having actually eating healthier, like yogurt and berries for breakfast, or
Huh.
it was an accident. But and also like fortunately I live a half a block from the park, so I can go running with my mask and gloves on. And actually, it's great when you run. You get really good ideas for comedy routines too.
That's a great segue back into like the actual topic about you and whatnot. I'm curious. I think I actually posed this question before, so I wondered what you came up with. You had this whole practice for years. You're still involved with it. You went into comedy, and you're really taking that seriously. What are the things that matter the absolute most to you? How do you spend your time every single day?
Well, I'm semi-retired now, so um, it's basically it's it's basically trying to keep healthy with
Mm.
like diet, exercise, meditating. I have spending Zoom comedy classes, um, Zoom physical therapy for myself, for and just trying to like and reaching out to friends and family, and FaceTime, like phone calls, which you wouldn't make before, now have become popular.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just FaceTiming people, reconnected with people that I haven't seen um, like years, but they're glad to hear from you, because like everyone's like it's like searching for their lost friends. That they haven't, they're searching for like more meaning in their life than they had. So um, I just try to keep involved with and then with with my medical school, Jefferson, still helping with their alumni activities, and so just keeping active and as best I can, and meditating too. Meditation is very good. And I have this device I want to show you. It's my hypervolt. You know what this is? You have
Oh,
a
the gun, right? That's
for massaging.
yeah, I've seen it online. I've never used it.
It's very good. You just like push a button and it
Paradigm shifting.
paradigm shifting to your sore your sore muscle. This isn't
I
this
didn't expect.
this is going to be my next comedy routine, but
You just pull that bad boy out. I didn't expect a personal massage to be part of the show, but that just makes it even better.
oh, absolutely. This is I would tell my patients I'm a salesman and what I'm selling is good health. That was,
I like that.
yeah, definitely. So
So, Dr. Rayfield, what's next for you? Because you give me the impression of somebody who is just going with the flow of what makes you happy today. You're not necessarily. I don't know if this is fair to say, but it doesn't. You're not obsessed, maybe like I am, about getting somewhere. right now. You're spending your time being happy, spending your time. Is that fair to
Yeah.
say?
Yes. So I'm going to keep on writing my comedy, doing my comedy. I'm going to keep on volunteering in the diabetes clinic at Mount Sinai, um, and just kind of like keep moving, trying to keep healthy and exercise and meditate and connect and like, maintaining contact with my family and my friends. And um, I think like for me, I think in some ways the best is yet to come.
Mm. If you had a guess, what would it be?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I
You're
I
like,
would love to see.
this is this is an invitation for you to have me back on a podcast.
That's it. See, that's the thing. I think that has to be a theme for this show. I think it wouldn't make sense if I didn't, because a lot of what I talk about is progress in the ways that you want your life to progress, right? I thought it was very interesting to have your life the way it played out. You must have this thing that I refer to it as this thing that people have that drives them to do something when nobody else is telling them to do it. There's no reason that you had any business becoming an amateur comedian after all of the success you've seen in your life. You live on Park Avenue in New York. You're what did you say, 5 minute walk from the Central Park?
2 minute walk. It's, it's a half a block from. It's 2 minutes.
So there you go. I think if anybody can read between the lines, you've lived a very good life, and you've done a very good job getting to be able to live where you live and live the life that you live.
But part of it is so Maya Angelou says, when you learn, teach. When you get, give. And that's like, I'm not finished because I have so much to give other people to help them just.
I think so too. And I think that's what's spilling out of you with this comedy avenue. I think that's what you said. It's another way for you to touch people and reach out to people, and that is what I'm obsessed with understanding in people. That's why I'm so curious about your story and how you got to where you are, because, like I said, you had no business or no reason to do this other than something driving you to do more. You could have easily rode off into the sunset, honestly, and you could have semi-retired or retired. Or
Some of my patients wanted me to run off into the sun. They said it was time. They were usually patients that I came up with diagnoses that they did not want to hear about.
Yes. Let's get a second opinion, shall we? Let's do that. Yeah, so I'm intrigued by that. I think it absolutely makes sense to have you on again, because this is something I talked about with my colleague, Dr. Bridget Cooper. We talked about reference points in life and traditions, and how important it is to have annual traditions, or however frequent, because you can see how far people progress. An example of that, the first thing that came to my mind, so I'm just gonna be honest. Every year at work, we have what we call the individual plans of attack. And it's kind of a rah-rah event for like the whole market to come together and talk about what they're going to, earn for the company and that sort of thing. And we're in sales, so it's a very like salesy thing to do. After I gave my presentation this year, a colleague came up to me and she had tears in her eyes. And she said to me, I just can't believe how much you've grown since the first time you were up there. And I was probably 7 or 8 days into the new job when I gave my first presentation. So I had nothing to report. I was just all optimism and whatever. And 2 years later, I gave I gave a new speech. And she had tears in her eyes, a friend of mine. And I was so like surprised by that and heartened by that she would be moved by progress that I frankly didn't pay much attention to, because I was just spending every day in it. having those moments, having those things, such as you coming back on the show, makes perfect sense. And I think it's a beautiful part of our reality that we need to treasure for what it is.
Sure. Absolutely.
Awesome.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Dr. Rayfield, how do people get in contact with you if they want to reach out to you?
Well, they can send an email to me, ejrayfield@aol.com. That would be the easiest way.
Awesome. Awesome. Absolutely wonderful time having you on. I can't wait for the next one. I think we should put it in the books as soon as we get off the phone here.
Thank you. Great. All right. Take care. Enjoy. Have a good evening, and see you soon.
Very soon.
Okay. Take care.
Take care.
Good night.